That's enough whiffling from me. On with the panel. I'd like to introduce Luke Brynley-Jones, who is going to kick things off. Luke.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sam. Good. So, welcome. My name is Luke Brynley-Jones. I run a company called Our Social Times. Some of you may know me. I do conferences and courses on social media marketing in different places. I've also done a whole bunch of events across the US with Constant Contact as one of my lead sponsors. So this all fits in very nicely for my sort of business as well. So, topic today, very interesting topic, social media and email. I have to say I'm very much from the social media side of things. I've been slightly blind to email, like many people in my sector, for the last 5 or 6 years, and it's about time I took another look at it. But I'm finding that there are 3 sort of views on social media and email. There are some people who think that email is dead and it's gone and it's past its sell-by date and everything now should be social. And some businesses are actively doing that, are focusing very much on social media. Others are actually looking and saying, well, actually, where's the ROI in social media? Look at the return on investment, look at the click-throughs, look at the rates the returns you're getting from things, and email offers a better opportunity. And then there's a third group, and I'm hoping we've got some of you in the room today who are thinking, actually, these things could work really well together. And so there's an opportunity to combine the skills we've used in email for the last 10 years with these new and emerging skills and opportunities with social media. So that's the cusp we're going to be exploring today. So just to kick off, who here is using email marketing quite a lot? Okay, we've got lots of email marketers. And who's using social media quite a lot? Okay, same bunch. And who is already using them both together in some way? Okay, good. So I'm expecting lots of comments today. That's good. So, little bit of housekeeping. We're being live streamed, so no streaking, please. We've also got, obviously, the hashtag, and we've got a team from Constant Contact who are at CTCTUK. That's CTCTUK. So if you send a tweet to them, they will put their hand up to me and ask me your question. So if you're shy or you're a million miles away watching the live stream, that's the opportunity for you. So, last thing, introducing my wonderful panelists. So, briefly, I'm just going to introduce you by name. So, this is Dan Martin from Business Zone. It's Katie Howell from Immediate Future. This is America Ayotte from Constant Contact. And Tamsin Fox-Davies from Tamsin Fox-Davies. So, if you want to start and just introduce yourselves, 2 minutes, please, guys. Yep, go for it, Dan.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, as Luke said, my name's Dan Martin. I'm editor of businesszone.co.uk, which is a website for small business owners. I've been a journalist for 10 years, always online. Don't do that print stuff. And I've always been writing about entrepreneurs. So I've worked for various web publications, but I've been at Business Zone for 6 years. I also look after ukbusinessforums.co.uk, which is an old school forum for small business owners that's 9 years old and gets 40,000 contributions a month. So it's pretty active, full of crazy comments from entrepreneurs. I'm also the founder of The Pitch, which is a competition for small business owners that launched in 2008 and actually launched for 2012 yesterday. So if you're a small business owner, consider getting in touch. And I'm a Twitter addict, joined in 2008 and haven't stopped tweeting since.
Hi, I'm Katie Howell. I work at Immediate Future. We've been doing social media, would you believe, for 8 years. When people didn't call it social media, they called it MySpace. That was it. And I've watched Twitter come along and YouTube come along, and I work with brands. At the moment, working with Indesit, the people that do the washing machines, Hotpoint, Indesit, and Staples, people that make buying stationery easy. Sound like an advert, don't I? JD Williams, who have 41 retail outlets selling fashion, and also not-for-profits and organisations such as the General Medical Council. So working with organisations that find working within social media somewhat tricky.
I'm Erica Ayotte. I head up social media at Constant Contact. And for those of you a little unfamiliar with Constant Contact, we are a SaaS, or software as a service-based provider of online marketing tools for the SME market. We're most well known for our email marketing products, but we also have social media, an event, and survey. We have about 500,000 customers worldwide, 10,000 of which are already in the UK. And we're based in the US, but we just came in market in the UK, and our head of the UK, Annette, is here today. She's over in the corner, wave. So you can talk to her after if you want.
Hi, I'm Tamsin Fox-Davies. You can find me at tamsinfoxdavies.com. And I'm a small business marketing specialist. So I'm all about taking the tiny budgets that small businesses have and really making them go further. Consequently, a lot of my clients are using email and social media together because they're very, very cost-effective tools. And I'm hopefully going to be able to share some of their experiences with you today.
Okay, thanks guys. So to kick off, Erica, perhaps you can remind us why email marketing is so good, because some of us in the social world have forgotten about it.
Right. Well, social gets so much attention now, and of course it's really important for finding new customers, for engaging your current ones, but people tend to forget that any singular Facebook post, say we'll take Facebook as an example, you only reach about 3 to 7% of your fans, while with email you're going to be able to reach, a good email open rate is about 20 to 30% depending on your industry, so you're actually reaching a greater percentage of your current customer base or your current prospects when you use email. That's not to discount social. A lot of people can grow their email list by using social. So really they're two halves of the same whole. If you use them in conjunction, you can make each one more effective. I would say another advantage that email has is that you're able to segment by interest. So you can send emails out to different parts of your customer base based on their interests, and you can't really do that with social media.
Yeah, and Tamsin, I mean, your experience with small businesses, I mean, the room is telling us that they're still using email just as much as they ever were, I think. So is that your experience as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing about social media, as Erica was saying, is that you've got limited visibility for any one post. But then also, your social media posts are naturally very short. And people often like to stay in the network. Whereas with email, you can get right in front of people. You can have longer messages. You can get them a little bit more kind of involved on that specific issue, and then also put in some really good links and direct them to where you want them to go.
Yeah, and Katie, with the bigger brands, are they as in love with email as they've ever been, or have they switched slightly?
No, they haven't, and I think the question is wrong. Basically.
Go on, yeah, go on.
Sorry.
That's right. Bash the moderator. It's too early for that.
I do still like you, I promise.
Go on.
The question is wrong because certainly when it comes to bigger brands, but I suspect it's the same whoever you are, is treating them as an either-or question. It's not an either-or question. Yeah. It never has been. And you have to fundamentally understand it's not the channel you use, it's the customer you have. So you need to turn your thinking about ahead. What I mean by that is your customer wants to receive a communication from you, is accepting a communication from you. They want to do it in the way they want to do it. Now, some of your customer base will be happier to talk to you and have a relationship with you through email, and some of them will prefer to do it through social media. And trying to turn this into an either or a channel debate is the same kind of argument as to, why cinema was going to kill TV, why video killed a radio star, all that stuff. It doesn't exist, it's not true, it's made-uppy stuff for headlines.
Yeah, it's the blogger in me coming through, I know. Dan, you're a blogger too. I mean, do you opt on one side or the other, or are you firmly sort of in the middle?
No, I agree that both exist. I mean, the company I work for, we're a publisher, so our product, as it were, is our email newsletters that go out on Wednesdays and Fridays, and that is still our biggest driver of traffic. So if I look at our analytics to Business Zone, we get a peak on Wednesday and Friday, so it's still very important to us. But equally, I'm starting to get more and more and more peaks from controversial stories that I post out on Twitter or questions. But I think the key thing is you still should be using email, but I think businesses are getting worse at not targeting. We all get so many email newsletters now, and I delete most of them, even ones from brands that I am actually quite interested in. So although there's this option of segmenting to specific regions and specific industries, I don't think many brands really are doing it. They're just hit and hope, and hoping that somebody somewhere will be interested in that email that they send. So,
I mean, you say you use it and it drives your traffic. I mean, do you combine the two in your emails that you put out? I mean, how are you using social?
Well, we do the standard, buttons. Follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook, follow us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Google Plus, not yet. I'm still not sure about that one. And as for Pinterest, let's not bring that up. But we do. As a journalist, I use it a lot. So I will publish a story written maybe by somebody else that's a bit controversial, and then I'll put that on Twitter, and we'll often get a view, and then I'll invite that person to then write a newsletter back on my website, and they will obviously then retweet it, and it's just this constant flow of information. So as a journalist, it's a different kind of thing, I suppose, to a small business owner, but it's, you know, I try and link both of them. And apologies to any PRs in the room, but, you know, now if I want an article written by a specific expert, I'm less likely now to use things like response source, which PRs will know about, and I'll just tweet. And then I'll get that information in and publish the article on Business Own and then put it in an email. So I suppose we have got that constant flow of linking social to emails.
Okay, so we're getting to making the case for the combination of the two now, which Katie eloquently made. But you know, Erica, I mean, if you were to say like 2 or 3 things that are the reasons for combining email with social, what would they be?
Well, certainly visibility, as we talked about before.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that you're reaching your audience where they are. If they choose to, if that is through Facebook, if you know they might just not be able to see your Facebook posts. You want to make sure you're hitting them wherever the customer is. The other thing too is that you can tie social and email together. So, for example, within your email, you can reference Facebook posts or tweets and really get longer life out of the social media content that you're putting online. Because a lot of times you tweet or you post and it's up and gone. And email can really extend the life of some of your social media efforts. The other thing, too, I think to remember about email and social is that they are similar in that they're both permission-based forms of marketing. When someone gives you their email address, or someone likes your Facebook page, or if they decide to follow you on Twitter, they are all saying, yes, I want more, I want to hear more information from you. And then really it's up to you after you get that buy-in to make the best out of all of those streams.
Okay, cool. So maybe just looking at it the other way as well, is there any downside of combining the two? I mean, are you at risk of alienating anybody or cannibalizing your email, marketing or anything? Are there any downsides from this?
The biggest downside that I've actually seen is on the publisher's end. So the business, particularly with small businesses, because they've got limited time as well as limited money, people will try to do everything all at once, and something falls by the wayside. And so you set up an expectation maybe that you're going to communicate with people on Twitter as well as doing your newsletter. And what happens is, and maybe on your newsletter you've got a call to action where you're actually asking people to come and tweet you, but then you never respond to your tweets because you don't have time, or it's just not where you want to be. And so sort of in addition to what Erica was just saying about, go where your audience is, I would also say start from where you are. So if you are active on Facebook, use Facebook. Don't worry about Twitter right now. If you're active on Twitter, use Twitter. If you're used to doing emails, start with that and then build the other stuff in. Okay. I see lots of nodding heads. Is that received wisdom? Is that everybody agreed on that one?
Yeah, I mean, there's some members of mine absolutely hate Twitter and Facebook, and if I go on about it, they're like, shut up, I don't use it, it's not, but they prefer to get an email. But then I know small business owners that don't send emails. Another bit of a plug here, but a friend of mine who runs a fair trade baby clothes business called daisychainbaby.co.uk. She, sorry.
Product placement.
Daisychainbaby.co.uk. Did the live stream get that? She doesn't pay me, I just help her out with PR. But she only uses Facebook. And she's been in business for 3 years. She doesn't send email newsletters. And she's got 2,000 odd fans, which is quite big for a small business. And she uses that to send out an email alert, I suppose. And then she gets hundreds of comments. And she's getting sales through Facebook. And maybe if she then, she's got a full-time job as well. If she then tried to start building email newsletters and thinking about design, and maybe she'd get no traction from it and lose fans that are wanting to buy stuff via Facebook. So I think I agree, go where your people are and stay there, and then when you've got more time, move on to the other channels and expand your customer base.
And I would follow up with that by saying, that sounds like that's a business model that works for her. But remember that everything that you put on Facebook or on Twitter is public. So there might be something that you want to communicate to your customers that you might not want the whole world to see. So for example, if there was a mistake or something happened with the product, you might want another way to communicate your customers in a way that remember, we don't want every communication to go viral. So that might be an instance where it would be useful to have something like an email address when you can connect directly with those customers and you might not want everyone else to see something.
That's quite interesting, because the other element that people don't think about when they try and integrate is I think of it as thoughtless integration, which is I'll slap a couple of buttons on this and then I'll share it, and I won't think about how this can be construed in another medium. So what you write on your email ends up on Facebook, ends up on Twitter, and it gets paraphrased and it gets changed, and there are hundreds of examples across the internet where brands have found themselves caught out by something that they thought was a good idea via email, and then have it merrily displayed on someone's blog and everybody tweeting about it. So, yeah, of all of the things where it's so easy, the word integration is easy to say, it's easy to think about, and it's putting these buttons on, which are fairly simple to do, and all of this stuff. But the hard bit is thinking about it, thinking about exactly how your message will move from one place to the next, and that, for us, I think, is probably the biggest risk, and it's where we see the holes open up for brands.
So it's targeted integration rather than blanket, thoughtless integration in that
targeted,
sense.
but also thinking about how that communication can change. I mean, it's an old sort of PR communications idea that message corruption happens, like Chinese whispers. The message at the end of the Chinese whisper is never what you started with. It's that same kind of principle, which is even sometimes taking apart your sentences and saying, well, if somebody just tweeted this sentence, how might this work? How might this be taken out of context? As well as the outrage when you've had 500 messages telling you that there's a sale on, in your inbox, and you're fed up being spammed by a brand. So there's kind of all these elements that you need to think about. And I personally agree with Dan. I think a lot of email has been done poorly to date. And what I mean by that is that it's been a blast. Let's blast it out. Let's send it out. Let's not think about it. But social media is stopping people from going down that road. It's saying, if you do that, then you take the risk that people will talk about it, and they'll talk about it quite loudly.
So it's balancing up. That's an interesting angle as well. Balancing up the bad reputation that email has had at times in the past with the voice of the customer coming through. So we've sort of touched on, and we've had Dan's case study there. What was that URL again, Dan? No, don't worry. In terms of concrete case studies, Erica, perhaps if you want to give us an example of a business who's done this and what they achieved.
Yeah, sure. So I can talk about one of our customers called Illumin Training over in Windsor. I don't actually know where that is.
That way.
That way?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So they're one of our customers, and they what they do is management training, and so they have a very popular newsletter. So they do a lot of events, in-person training, but I think they have about 3,000 subscribers to their newsletter, and it's very popular. They get great responses, great open rates, great click-through rates, because they're really using their newsletter as a thought leadership opportunity. But on the other end, they're also using social, and so they're able to grow. 25% of their new contacts come in through social media, so they're able to capitalize on that opportunity, able to grow their contact list by being active and doing social well. And it's not just like you were saying, a badge on an email. They focus on developing those communities, and they are responsive. So because especially with social media, it makes companies more honest. You can't do a bad job because you're going to hear about it. So if you're doing marketing in general well, if you're a great company, you're going to be able to succeed at both email and social.
Okay, so that's one example. Tamsin, I know you had an example. If you want to.
Yeah, I've got a client who is producing a regular email newsletter, and what he did was he obviously has his sharing buttons on his newsletter, all of that kind of stuff. But he ran a competition on Facebook, but drove traffic to it through his newsletter because he knew that those were his engaged customers. And that actually worked out quite well, because then on Facebook, he got quite a good level of interaction, and then from the people coming from his newsletter, and then that meant that their friends on Facebook were seeing that and then jumping in.
So did he, in terms of the goal of that, was that to get new customers or to increase his list or increase engagement with existing customers?
It was twofold. He was getting new customers and increasing his list, and actually threefold if you count getting new fans on Facebook as well.
Okay.
Because he didn't set that out as a specific aim, but that happened.
And did he have the sort of the tools and the know-how to measure that effectively? Because that's the other question. Obviously, that I mentioned in the introduction, email is, you can track the click-throughs and the links and the sales directly. With social, it's harder. So did he manage to do that? Or?
Yeah, what we did was we didn't go overboard on measurement, because although measurement's a great thing and there are so many tools that you can use to do that, I advocate not getting too obsessed by it, because otherwise you can find yourself checking your stats like 42 million times a day. Not that I've done that. So just pick like 1 or 2 things that you're going to track and use those as your monitoring. So we tracked on the emails who was clicking on the link for the competition, how many people were going through. Then we were looking on the competition page, actually who it was on there that was actually getting involved with it, and then the number of entries as well.
Okay. And I presume he's using now those engagement statistics to be able to target better his next list, the people who are going to share?
Yeah, absolutely. It was we actually did this as almost as a trial for a new product that he was bringing out. So then. The competition was all based around the subject of the product, so then he's used that as a way to market that product.
Okay, great. So Erica's got a point, yeah?
Yeah, I was just going to respond to that, and I think that social media analytics and tracking is getting a lot better because there are marketers who are used to using email marketing, used to being able to have that visibility into their funnel and who's doing what. And so I think there's a lot more tools out there to allow us that visibility, because we all then have to either report back to the business and find out what exactly is driving business results. And with social right now, that can be a little shady, but it's getting a lot better, I think.
So Katie, I know this is one of your big soft topics, so
Yes.
I was going to avoid you just because of your jive earlier, but I'll let you talk.
Yeah, you can, yes. Social is not as shady as people think it is. You can measure, you just have to think. And I know I'm probably going on about planning, but planning is everything. And thinking about what you're trying to achieve at the end means that you can make sure you put tagging codes in, that you make sure that you can follow a customer journey. The tools are out there now to allow us to track and follow. You don't have to measure everything. In fact, that's what you do in your planning, is work out what you need to measure, so you don't have to measure everything. What you don't want to be measuring is number of subscribers. But for me, that is not an end goal. The end goal is business results, and those business results can be any touch point along your customer journey to sale. So I'll give you an example, which isn't one of ours, which is Argos, who after Christmas emailed its contact base and asked them specifically to give reviews on their service. They got 2 million reviews. Now that can be tracked back, because every review that goes on their site to sales, so you can now see whether or not there's sales uplift. They will know the ratio of reviewers to sale ratio. They'll know their basket size. They'll know what increased their basket size. So it is thinking differently. The other element that I would add, not being able to give specifics about some of the brands we work with, but a lot of brands we work with have a long lead sales cycle. I've mentioned some of them. You can see that people don't buy them every other day. They're not fast consumables. How do you measure that? What are you measuring? Well, in those cases, they're measuring loyalty. So what they're trying to do is build a relationship, so the next time somebody makes that big ticket purchase, they are going to buy their stuff. So now what we've got is everything from the handshake with the customer all the way through to trying to make them the BFF. Because if you can get to the BFF, you get to advocacy, and you get to the point where people start to share that information, and it's tracking those touch points that really matters when you start planning.
So do you think, we've learned perhaps from social in terms of, increasing engagement with customers and not necessarily making the direct sale, but increasing those kind of other values. And now we're sort of backfilling that into our email marketing and knowledge, so that we're starting to use that more effectively for that same thing. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, for me, email is, I love email, it's terrible, isn't it? I do, and I'll tell you why I love it, because I do social media, and email is the conversation in a meeting room, and social media is the conversation out on the open plan office. So you get this personal intimacy with email if you do it right, whereas, you can be overheard if you talk gossip about your boyfriend in an open plan office, do you know what I mean? And other people join in, which is really annoying. So I kind of like to think of it as they are actually a really comfortable fit, and by that, to put it in the real world, email is a great stimulation. Yes, it can drive traffic to something, and also collate data. It can support in you collecting data that at the moment, if you have a Facebook fan page, doesn't belong to you. Data belongs to Facebook. Twitter belongs to Twitter. So how can you bring some of that ownership? You know, Facebook is IPOing. Think about it. Where are they going to make their money from? How much of that investment have you already made in your Facebook fan page? That means that should the goalpost change, should they start asking you for money, you're going to have to start paying up. So, you know, you need to be thinking about these things in advance. Some of you are investing a great deal of time in social media. Linking it through with email can give you a real return.
And are there, I mean, on that, you mentioned Facebook, are there specific platforms that lend themselves particularly well to integration with social media? So, I mean, obviously Facebook, it's the daddy of all social networks, but there's Twitter, which is a very light touch engagement, perhaps.
LinkedIn, of course.
LinkedIn, I mean, which are your favourites? I mean, Tamsin, do you advise clients to go a particular way, or?
I like to use, well, this is for myself, so I have an active email program. I'm also on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and YouTube. So those are my ones. Most of my clients, if I told them that it would be a good idea to do all of that in one go, they'd leave screaming and crying and saying, please don't make me, because it's just too much. So I really do say, you know, start where you are. But it also depends on who your audience is. So if your audience is business professionals, then it's a good idea to actually use LinkedIn. And also if you're in a B2B market space, LinkedIn's very good. If you're in the business of telling people how to do stuff, then YouTube is good. YouTube's also good for product-based businesses, because you can really show people what you're actually doing, what you've got, what's available. I love Twitter for people who aren't office-based, because it's so easy to do on your mobile, so you can be out and about. Because that's one of the big questions I always get is, how do I find the time? And I say, get a decent mobile app for whatever it is that you're going to be using, and do it while you're waiting for the kettle to boil. Do it while you're on the bus, you know, whatever. You can't do it on the tube yet. That will come, I'm hoping. Yeah, so I think it really, really depends where you are, where your customers are, and what you've got time for. But I think there's benefits to all of them.
Okay, and anybody else? I mean, Erica, in terms of integration with different networks?
Yeah, well, I definitely think, obviously we're talking about Facebook. I think when it comes to, you know, Facebook versus Twitter, Twitter is much more of a loud and visible tool. It's much more of it could be much more of a thought leadership tool. It can scale much faster than Facebook can. But in terms of return, in terms of marketing, in terms of lead capture and conversion, I think Facebook is much more powerful than Twitter. It takes a lot more to get someone to like your page. It's much more of a deeper relationship than it takes to get someone to follow you. So in that regard, I think it's a little bit more valuable from a marketing perspective versus a PR perspective. And when it comes to B2B, you know, LinkedIn is a great tool, and many B2Bs use it. But I also think that, you know, when you think of B2B, you're selling to a person, not a company. And those people are still on Facebook, and they're going to, for example, Constant Contact is obviously B2B, and most of our customers interact with us as themselves, not as their business. And so even for the B2B space, and it might be different for different industries, we find Facebook even more effective than LinkedIn.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on networks specific? I mean, beyond Facebook, perhaps?
Yes. Again, in our experience, there isn't an off-the-shelf answer for this. And there is such a temptation to say, well, it's Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. It isn't any of these things. It's wherever your bleeding customers are.
Yeah, okay.
If they're on Ning, if they love a forum, get into bed with that forum, start working with them if they're reading publications. These are the sort of things that you need to think about rather than trying. My fear is if we go down this route that every single email needs to have a Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever it is, button on it, that we're at the same risk of doing that thing that email is criticised for, which is spam blasting out the same message to everyone. And it's segmentation that you should be thinking about. Even the smallest business should think about defining its core audiences. Who's your customer today? Who was your customer a year ago? It doesn't matter how you segment. Is it the same customer that buys your product, or is it some customers buy this product, some customers buy that? Is it male? Is it demographic? Is it female? What is it? You know, and if you don't understand that, you won't have the right message. Just like the big retailer that sent me a message, asked me if I wanted to have a racing day. You know, I'm a 47-year-old woman, you know, really? No, not really. You know, so it's not understanding that target market and not getting that would not be of interest to me. That's your opportunity. Your big opportunity is understanding your customer better.
Yeah. Dan, any thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's all been said, but I would emphasise, don't think that you've got to do them all. Like, look what's happened with Pinterest. I mean, now I haven't joined it, but everyone's on it because they think they should. And I got a tweet from a brand that I respect recently who said, follow us, or whatever it is you do on Pinterest, pin us, or whatever it is. We're using it to put a link to our email newsletters. So on Pinterest, they've just got links to their... And I'm like, well, what are you getting out of that? I don't really like LinkedIn. We use it, we have a group, but I think it's not very user-friendly as groups go. I think they need to do a lot more work on engagement. But, yeah, don't just do them all and then you'll end up neglecting most of them. For us, even though we're a B2B brand, Twitter is by far the most effective tool. I find it harder on Facebook to get engaged with the entrepreneur readers than I do on Twitter. So I probably do concentrate more on that than I do on our Facebook fan page. So just step back, think about it, and if you end up on some obscure widget forum.co.uk, whatever it is, go there if that's where your customers are.
Mm-hmm. So, and actually, Erica, you touched on one thing. We've been talking very much about sort of email and what you do with your emails, and like us on Facebook, etc. But obviously, there's traffic perhaps coming the other way. So people coming to your Facebook page, and do you capture their email addresses there, and then what kind of communications do you engage with them on that? I mean, so what are your thoughts on that? Is it better to keep people on Facebook, or is it better to take them off, or are you going to do both? I mean,
well, again, it depends on your individual business. So, just use Constant Contact as an example. So, we have a couple social media tools that we just went to market with. So, in their Facebook base. So, in that case, it makes sense to keep a lot of those customers on Facebook because that's the platform where that these new products are based on. So in that case, yes, it absolutely does. And it just depends on, you're talking about like Facebook versus website and, the new front door, that sort of thing. You can use Facebook in a variety of different ways. Absolutely, you can use it for lead capture. When before someone likes your page, like it with a join my mailing list or a contact form to get that information and learn more about your audience. I mean, one of the best things I think about Facebook is that and something that's really underutilized is using it as a business intelligence tool. There's so much you can learn about your fans, about your customers, about your prospects on Facebook if you would only ask them. And going along with that, I think, especially, and Tamsin can probably talk to this too, small businesses are so strapped for time, and they get concerned about the different content that they should post on each network, and they get a little concerned about, what I have to come up with all this different content for Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn, and in my newsletter, what do I write? And they kind of get paralyzed by that fear. And the thing is as long as you have a theme, you can iterate that on that and make that exciting and relevant for each of the channels just by twisting it around and making it a little different for each channel.
Do you think in some ways we might be being a little bit soft in that? There's a report that some guys based in London, Market Sentinel, did last year, where they looked at a statistic actually, which was one of yours, I think, Constant Contacts, which is sort of 93% of people who come and like your page never come back there, which is kind of terrifying if you build your business around Facebook. Anyway, and if they haven't come back and they haven't engaged recently, then they're not going to see a lot of your updates. Therefore, you're losing that engagement. So Market Sentinel were actually saying, well, in that first interaction, you ought to get their email address because it may be the last you'll ever see of them. Is that something, especially for small businesses, you'd have thought that's crucial?
Right, exactly. And I think part of that too is that businesses are still figuring out how to use Facebook well, and that's the reason why they're not showing up in the news feed. Or most people don't come back to your page, but if you're doing Facebook well, if you get a lot of engagement in your posts, you will be seen in the news feed. And I think it's a matter of education and helping small businesses figure out what does get engagement. But you're right, exactly, getting that contact information. So if they like you or they follow you, but they never see you on social networks again, then you've kind of lost that opportunity to grab that contact.
Yeah.
There's probably a lot of people in the room thinking, how the hell do I do that? Yeah? Yeah, okay. So I've got the answer. So most of the big email providers, including Constant Contact, have an app in Facebook that's a little sign-up widget. So if you go looking in the apps, you will find it, whichever, which probably, like sort of the big 3 or 4 have that. You can also go and create a custom welcome tab, which Constant Contact's new tool does that, and there's other apps as well. And then just pick up the code from your email newsletter provider for their little sign-up box and drop it in if you've got an HTML space in there. Does that answer the question that everybody's got? Yeah. Can I repeat it? Okay. Yeah, so on Facebook you can have a custom welcome tab. So that just means that when you go to your Facebook page, if you've not already liked that page, it's what those people see. So it's a new visitor sees a custom welcome tab instead of just going straight to your wall. And it can have all sorts of stuff on, all sorts of content, but definitely an email sign-up box can be on there. Yeah, if you look in the Facebook help, there's loads of
I see a
stuff
private
about
consultation coming on here. Potential new business. Katie, I know you've done a lot of stuff with big brands who do this stuff. I mean, what's their view on, keeping people on Facebook, taking them off it? Where do they like you to be?
Well, it varies between brands. Not all our brands are on Facebook, actually, because they don't need to be. But yeah, it's our recommendation to do it, and it is apps, which are these splash pages that you often see on Facebook that are ideal. And as I said, ultimately you're trying to engage within Facebook so that more than 1% of your audience actually sees what you're doing. And secondly, you're trying to capture that data to bring it into another space. And I can tell you categorically time is an issue for big businesses too. We're at the current economic climate. Many businesses have headcount freezes. They're also standing by their coffee machines trying to get the job done. So time is a big problem. So why would you ask for something more for you to do? Well, actually, it becomes easier. And if you make this process as automated as possible through these apps, then you're able to create trigger points. That means that it feeds straight into your email system. And we haven't touched yet on social CRM, but that's effectively what I'm talking about, is this whole idea of connecting your world up, because your consumer doesn't exist in one space. They're not just Facebookers, and they're not just emailers, and they're not just TV watchers. And are any of you just one of those things? Because I'm not. And even though I might not be on every social network, and I might not read every email, I have various touch points that work for me. And that's where you need to think broadly about integration within these spaces. I would add there's some networks that won't let you do that. So there are some places where it is you can't do an email sign-ups, so you have to be clever about it.
How early and how hard-nosed do you get about this? I mean, do you require email addresses straight off? Like us, email address straight through, or is it a lighter touch?
Something. It's all the same thing. Tell you what, how many people here are running a Facebook page? Ooh, loads of you. How many are running competitions? How many are asking for an email address? So now you see that's great, because that's such an easy thing. Yeah, I see so many competitions where they're not asking for an email address and they're not putting the little tick box that says, "Can we use this for the marketing? Can we talk to you? Can we sign up to our newsletter?" Really, really, really simple ways of thinking it through. It doesn't have to go outside your comfort zone. And even if you're not doing competitions, you're just doing special offers or deals or anything that will inspire people. You're, in the same way as you might try and encourage people to sign up to your list in any other way. That's exactly what you're trying to do.
So it comes back to the engagement tools, techniques, all that kind of stuff. And presumably that works in email as well.
It does. It does. I would say your first emails back at people really matter. And if they come to you via social, don't send them your standard newsletter-y thing, okay? Don't send them that. Recognise them. Say, I love your tweets, or whatever it is that it depends how close you are to them or to how far away you are. On Twitter we've got this special handle, we use this, and every once a month you get a bonus prize, blah, blah, blah. Recognise where they've come from. This whole idea of moving your email towards personalisation can be really quickly automated.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, okay, well,
I was just going to say that's a
point.
great point to segment by source, and especially if you're identifying social as a specific and unique source. And I think that makes a lot of sense to put those people in a different box and communicate to them in a different way.
And it's also like getting people to reconfirm and give you more information. Like if you just, when they sign up to your newsletter, they just give you their email address, but you need more information about them, on a regular basis, not too regular, but send out some survey of your members and go, if you fill in these extra details, you're entered into a prize draw to win an iPad. So then you can use that information they give you to be more personalised. So, don't just assume that it's just the email address. Try and get more information about them by giving them something.
Actually, we've got a question just here, so let me just grab your mic. Go on.
Hi. All the information's great, but slightly overwhelming. I'm just going to tell you my business now is Gemini Jewellery, by the way, everyone. So basically, I design jewellery. I have a Facebook page and a Twitter page. I also send out newsletters. We have a Facebook store as well. So I do ask people to sign up to the newsletter, but I just feel like by personalising and doing all of these other things, it's just so much extra work. I feel really like, how am I going to do all of this? I just, we've got a team, but still, it's a lot of work.
So I'll go straight to the small business marketing expert on the end here.
So I would say you need a system. So what you want to do is almost like a lot of people now will have an editorial calendar for their blog. They know that once a week they're going to post a book review, and then once a week they're going to post an article, and once a week they're going to find someone else's video and post, say. I would do exactly the same thing for your other platforms. So it might well be that that on Twitter what you're doing is you're tweeting customer comments most often. Like that's your thing that you do. And you can use tools like Timely, which is timely.is, to actually schedule those. So that's not time specific in terms of, it's not like you've got a special offer on that you want to be talking about now, or you've got a new thing that's coming out. Those are just, they can just go into a feed. And then I would also, if you've got a team, actually give different people the jobs of dealing with the different channels as well. Because a lot of the time I see people say, oh yeah, I've got someone who's going to help me with my social media on my team. And then that poor person has to do all of the platforms. Is that what you've done? She's sat here. Oh, honey. But it's a great idea to actually to split that up a little bit if you can as well. And also I would look at where you're getting the best response of different kinds. So where are you getting the best comments, where are you getting the most questions, where are you getting the most click-throughs to your online store, all of that stuff, and then really tailor your activity to those directions.
I personally find Twitter the best channel for B2B. We've generated business in the UAE through Twitter. It's been incredible for us. So.
If anybody didn't hear that, you're saying that, sorry, what's your name? Gemini's saying that she gets the best response from Twitter for B2B and has achieved sales overseas from that platform. Yeah, which is great. So you know that, so you can then consciously actually use Twitter in that way. Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you.
Cool. Actually, while we're on questions, guys who are just checking on Twitter, have we got any tweeted questions yet? Any interesting ones? Go on, grab a mic.
We have a question about email for search engine optimization. Any examples of Google Plus integration with that too? So looking at search engine optimization for email, especially with Google Plus integration. So I guess they're asking about using email and Google Plus together for better SEO.
Plus. Is anybody using Google Plus for active marketing at the moment?
Never heard of it. We're not using it yet. We're still in the very early days. I've registered but haven't done anything with it, which is probably bad. Shouldn't be saying that. Yeah. But one of our websites is using it and is just using it to post articles and stuff. But I've not done any integration yet.
Yeah, Eric.
As far as an integration with Google Plus and email, we haven't attempted that yet. But as far as Google Plus goes, we have dipped our toe into the Google Plus waters, and really what we're using it for right now is exactly what the person who's asking the question was about, was SEO. And so we're posting a lot of our content on Google+. We aren't actively filling the community or really making that a one of our main engagement channels right now, because we just don't want to throw another channel onto our small business customers. We feel like that would just be too overwhelming. So we're really taking a wait and see approach. But I will say, and this is rather suspicious, I would say, is that very soon after launching our Google Plus platform, which is very young and has the least amount of followers of any of our channels, about a week after, it was the top organic search result, which sounds, Google is indexing its own product. No surprise there, but it was interesting. So
yeah,
that's all I'll say about that.
Do I look astonished? Yeah. So I mean, you mentioned the SEO benefits there. Do you want to just explain that a little bit more, because some people might not be familiar with the changes?
Right. So search engine optimization, using the keywords that you want your brand to be known for. So what do you want your brand to be associated with? What if someone Googles or someone is wondering how to find you, or they Google, if you're a jewelry shop, jewelry in the UAE, you want your organic meaning the not the paid advertising on the top or on the side in the boxes, but the top organic search result. You want to be on the first page. You want your company website or maybe even your Facebook page. And what we're seeing now is that often when searching for our brand term, people are finding our social networks first, even before our website occasionally. So really, it's being able to position your brand name with all of the keywords about your business. So what are terms that people might search your business on? So jewelry in the UK, or email marketing for small businesses or SMEs.
Okay, so fundamentally, it's really just getting yourself out there. It's not really connected to email at the moment. It's just having a presence on the web that's
not that I've seen. The only thing I could think of is that often you can share your email to either Facebook or Twitter, and it can exist not just in your email inboxes, but your email can also exist under a unique URL. So if you're sharing that, I would imagine that would be searchable as well. So I mean, it doesn't. This all sounds very complicated, and I now have to search for keywords, and I don't know what those are. But the thing is, if you're communicating with your customers and you're giving them the information that is important to them, you're probably already using those words. So I wouldn't, sweat too much about that.
Okay. So I'm gonna come back to the panel in a bit for some thoughts on the future as well. So prepare your thoughts on that. But it seems as we've got lots of hands up. Can I have a mic? Well, pass it around. Again.
Hi, a question for Katie. You mentioned giving a personal response to that first communication, the first reply. If you've got many different sources and you want to really personalize, how does one deal with this? Does one need a software that will have a matrix of various answers, and you just plug in those bits and pieces and send it out that way? Does Constant Contact do that? In replying to, let's say, a newsletter, if there is a response, what sort of automation can one do? Because I'm battling to moderate a small closed network run with a company called Groups, GROU.ps, and it's a closed access equivalent to Facebook. And everybody's requiring a moderated welcome. And we've only got 100 now, but when we've got 1,000 or 10,000, I'm going to be stretched.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Yes, it can be automated, and I keep going on and banging on about this, but it is in the planning that you have to think it through, which is which segments matter most to you, because you don't have to have 100 different answers. I'm not suggesting that you micro-segment everything you're doing, but a nod to understanding that not every customer looks at you in the same way or wants to connect in the same way. And yes, you can automate it. Now, I have to confess that every brand I work with has legacy systems, and so all our automations have been built from the ground up. So I can't recommend, I'm sure these guys can recommend lots of tools, and I'm sure you guys can help out.
Yeah, perhaps Tamsin, do you have any thoughts on that?
There's some really simple things that you can do, and this goes back to the thing about actually dealing with people in the way that they come to you. So if they find you on Twitter, and for example, you know, on Twitter, you've got your little bio where you describe what you do, and then you've got a link to put in your website. Most people just whack their URL in there. You can have a Twitter-specific landing page. So it might be, you know, tamsinfoxdavies.com/so you found me on Twitter. And then you can put content on that page that is specific and more relevant to the people that have come to you through that channel, and then maybe have a sign-up form there that goes specifically to that list, to a segmented list that way. So it's, because I understand your question, but what you're looking for, what you're asking about is an extremely complex system that's kind of coming from the other end. It's like if you can get them almost to segment themselves going in, it's a bit easier. The other thing that you can do is I use Constant Contact myself, and you can create different lists in there, and there's, you know, customizable welcome emails and autoresponders and those things, and you can have one that is not obviously customized to the very specific hi John, you're 42 and I understand that, you know, it doesn't have to be that level, but if you can group them in general terms, excuse me, anything that is a little bit targeted actually looks good at the moment, because so many people don't do it at all in any way. So even if you're just communicating with someone about what they've specifically said that they're interested in, they're actually quite pleased with that.
Yeah. Erica, you've been nodding there.
Yeah, I just wanted to just follow up on that and say it also, you know, when you're collecting that contact information, think about what information you want from them beyond, you know, their email address and their name, because that can help you personalize it in that way. I mean, I would caution against having, you know, 20 different, you know, segments that they have to fill out, because that would be prohibitive and no one's going to fill all of that out. But, you know, think about what's really most important to you, and that will help you, you know, with the communication bit on the other end.
Great. I think we had, thank you. Another question? Yeah, I'll do it. Just there. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm going to take an opportunity to have face-to-face communication with a journalist. So, pardon? He hasn't actually replied to my email or my tweet. Oh no, you did reply to a tweet. But face-to-face is probably still the best form of communication. Okay, so I do communications for a company called Knowledge Peers, which is a peer-to-peer network for directors of businesses and charities. So we've got loads and loads of great content from our members with regard to specific business issues, practical wisdom on moving into new markets, etc. I would love to share this with journalists because it's great expert content that could go into entrepreneurial magazines and publications. In the age of social media, I just want an answer to the eternal question of which is the best way to target a journalist with content or press releases.
It's going straight to the end there, Dan. Come on. Fess up.
Yeah, sorry for not replying to your email. But the thing is, there isn't really as any PRs know that follow me on Twitter, I'm quite critical occasionally of PRs who contact me with untargeted material. Because I think the problem that PRs do have, like a lot of businesses, is that they have to get their message out from their client to as many journalists as possible, and they just don't think about targeting. It's the same thing for us. We're a community, and they just spam us with any release that they've got and hope that I'll cover it. And I only cover small businesses, so if I get a press release that has a case study of I was going to say Nokia, just because I saw the logo, but a big brand that isn't relevant to my audience, then I will respond and say it's irrelevant. So I wouldn't say, but the key thing to me is looking at what I've done before, which is what you did do. So your email was a personal email. This is just me being slow to respond. But it was a personal email. You'd referenced content I'd already done. So it was like, you've already covered this, so I think because of that, this is relevant. And because I then know I've met you before, so that helps. If you then send me a tweet, I'm more likely to respond. So the thing to get to journalists is to take time to build a relationship, and it will take some time, and they won't just publish your press release. And Twitter does allow you to be more and get closer to journalists, because you can see the thought of things that we tweet about. Follow the hashtag #JournoRequest, which is a hashtag that journalists use when they're looking for specific case studies, so you can then reply and be targeted. But the big thing for me is to be relevant and look at what a journalist has previously written. So I'm not very news driven. I'm a practical advice website, and I've had very few surveys. So if you've done a survey of 2,000 small business owners and 71% like the colour blue, I'm probably not going to cover that. But another website, one of our competitors might. But so the key thing is, if you're trying to get to the media, go to the publication, which sounds really obvious, but a lot of communications and PR people don't do that. So you did do it right in terms of looking what I've done before, and you can maybe offer Tobias a coffee or a beer. But I will respond to your email later.
Katie, you're
I
not a
just
PR,
want to add,
but,
I
have a murky
PR
past
background.
in PR.
I just thought it might be worth looking up a guy called Mike Butcher, who is a journalist for the tech industry, writes for TechCrunch, because he's done a brilliant slide share on how to target journalists in social media. It's just brilliant. It's genius. And so if you want advice on how to get to journalists, particularly anybody who's selling tech products or tech services, go and have a look at his slideshow. It's fantastic.
Yeah, good. Okay, I've got lots of questions. Chap at the back there. Oh, I'll take that.
Question for Katie. Are there examples of big brands that are successfully collecting email addresses on Facebook as part of an online acquisitions strategy, and that are collecting high volumes of customer information that way?
I could tell you one of our brands is doing it, which is Hotpoint. So yes, there are brands doing it. And it is a very strategic decision, which feeds into a wider programme. I don't think it's being done ubiquitously. I mean, it never fails to amaze me that even some of the most simplest email activities don't occur right across the board, small or large. I've been in many an office where I've said, so you've emailed all your customers and told them you have a Facebook page, and there's a blank stare back at me, and they think, I've not thought of that. So, and I'd love to tell you who they are, but they're very big organisations that it hasn't occurred to them to even tell their own customer base that they've set up a Facebook fan page. So it works both ways, not just in acquisition, but also the other way around. So we are beginning to see, I mean, to be fair, social media has been much of an experimentation and pilot for the last 2 or 3 years. It's been people trying it out. Now we're seeing it become much more integrated within the business, and as it gets integrated in the business, it frequently moves from the brand manager out to the CRM manager. Certainly in big organisations, it's beginning to move through the silos, move through the functions, and as it does so, it's joining up. And so I suspect this year we will see a huge amount of connected social media where it's beginning to grow, not just with email, but in real life, where we start to see those connections being made.
Absolutely. Just a quick plug there. I'm doing a conference next month called The Social Customer, 29th of March, which is all about that, connecting up the dots between customers in social media and your internal business. So look at oursocialtimes.com. We've got a question there from the web somewhere.
We had a question come in from Twitter from Kate, and it is, what age group is most likely to engage with email?
Interesting. Age group, segmentation. Yeah, Erica.
I don't know if there's an age group segmentation on that. I'm not aware of one, at least. I think, again, it depends on where are you meeting your customers, what are they most interested in. And I think the thing to remember about email as well is that they're your stickiest customers. It's much more it's much more of a sell to get them to give you your email address. So I think it's going to be, if you're going to look at a segment, it's really going to be your best, most interested customers and prospects who are giving you their email.
I heard it. I mean, there's this myth about young people not using email anymore, and at university they don't get email addresses from the universities anymore. There's a stat, probably dubious, that I saw online actually a couple of days ago, which is that 94% or something of young people who like a brand also are comfortable to give them their email address.
Well, I think that goes to the point too of if you're collecting email addresses from social media, then if there's some sort of campaign or offer, make that compelling. Make them, put something in return. If you want their contact information, everyone expects now that, and especially if you say up front, like you may receive some emails from us. That's an expectation that's been set, and I think if you do it in the right way and make sure that it's permission based and have something compelling to give them in return, then you should be able to do that.
I think young people, most do accept that email is a form of communication because they've grown up with it, you know, when it existed straight away, unlike the older ones amongst us who, you know, it was introduced and we remember the times before it. So I think I read a tweet recently, though, this week that somebody said that young people do use email, but they just don't call it email. They see it as posting, they see it as social, they just read it differently on their phone. So I think just ignore it thinking, oh, under 18, so if that's your market, won't read an email, is a bit short-sighted.
Yeah, and I think the thing to remember also about social media is that it involves a certain amount of serendipity. It involves an amount of luck if someone's going to see your message or not. Even though we all have inboxes now that are fairly crowded, you're still being able to, email allows you to cut through that clutter in a little bit more of a direct way.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to add that you can't get on many of these social networks without an email. So the idea that email is dead is not quite true. I know Zuckerberg pronounced that it was over once he brought out his flashy service. I can't think what it's called now. But it isn't. Email is still there, and our customers are moving up that pipeline. So even if they're not accessing their email every day, and I have 2 teenagers who do not access their email every day and like their BBM instead. But they, you know, as they grow through the system, email becomes more and more pronounced, and obviously at work, you have email.
Absolutely, and even more pronounced because it's everywhere with us now as well, on our phones mostly, often. So.
And the other thing too is that a lot of social media services actually offer an email of your post or the post of the people that you follow, just because social media can be so overwhelming. If that is you, I would say one thing you might want to check out is something called Nutshell Mail, which full disclosure is part of Constant Contact, but it's a really cool service that allows you to emails you whatever post that you decide that you want to get in your inbox, so you're not missing particular people or particular streams.
Yeah, it's like Google Alerts for smart people. It's great.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you can have that strapline. Yes, lady there.
And it's free.
Let me just pass the mic over.
Thanks a lot.
Cool.
Yeah, this is partly in follow-up to what you were just talking about, because I was going to ask about that. Do you have any kind of metrics, I guess I'm addressing this to you, Erica, about the customer base of Constant Contact in terms of for arts or entertainment customers? Because one of the things I notice, and I do digital marketing and social for arts organizations, some of which are more traditional. They love email, it works great for them, they love Constant Contact. But I work also with developing artists, and I guess it's considered uncool now to ask for emails. And they've even said to me, oh, no, we don't want to do email captures on our Facebook. That's so uncool. If someone wanted my email address, I think that was lame. I mean, and I just would like to convince them that email's still important and relevant. For one thing, you own the email address. If you don't with your social media necessarily. So what would you say to them? You have any statistics for me?
Why do they think it's uncool? Just because it's not social, or?
I think it's just that people are out of the habit now, and with so much of marketing, right, it relies on people's psychology and what's in and what's out. So I think it's just become not in or not hip among certain segments.
That's really strange. Well, I'll have to get back to you on some specific stats specifically for your target market, but of course we have lots of arts and entertainment customers that use Constant Contact, and they usually get a great response. So maybe we can get you some case studies that will be able to illustrate that a little bit more fully.
Yeah. Look at the bottom line, the ROI, and see how cool that is. That's the thing. You know.
I think the thing to mention to them as well is that, you know, they are the artist, they are not the art buyer. So, and that's a conversation that I have with a lot of my clients where they say, well, I don't really like that. And it's kind of like, well, that doesn't really matter. You know, you are not your customer and your mum is not your customer. Your customers are your customer. You know, unless you've started a business to fulfill a need that you personally have. So, yeah, that's what I would say.
Peter?
When I'm a small business person, I'm sort of facing the blank page 3 times a week or something when I need to come up with posts or email newsletters. You know, you talked about polls and things like that. What are just some content ideas that are sort of go-to ideas to think about my brand and how I express it through these channels?
Yeah, do you want to?
So, as I was mentioning to the lovely jewellery people down here, especially the one that's having to do all the social stuff, I think it's a really great idea to have an editorial calendar. And this is what I personally do, is I actually have little post-it notes, love a post-it note, stuck to my monitor or, you know, on a specific page in my notebook where I put down all my ideas, and I do a big ideas dump, like, you know, once a fortnight, and then I can go back to that and actually pick out stuff that I'm going to do. So there are a whole load of different kinds of content that you can post, either on your, you know, on your blog, on put into your email newsletters, or on your social media platforms. So it might be that you want to do you want to do tips, or like fascinating facts about your area. That's like one set of stuff. You can do what's happening in your industry. You can do what's happening in your business, but actually keep those to a minimum, because people care more about your subject than about you, unless you're really fascinating, which most of us aren't, not that fascinating. And then you can do things like book reviews. You can do comments on what other people in your industry are actually saying. So, you know, found this great article by so-and-so. My take on it is that it's great, or maybe they've missed something here, or whatever, and actually start to create a debate. So there's a whole load of different ones that just about everybody could pick one of those areas, or something in one of those areas.
Sorry, Dan's looking keen.
Yeah, one thing I'd say is invest in a cheap flip camera kind of device. Flip's gone out of business, unfortunately, but I have one all the time as a journalist to do interviews. And one of our most popular bits of content was, I was at an event and I just came up with a question, and I just went round the room and asked everybody the same question. So I think this question was, what one thing could your business not survive without? And I went round and they all had to say, my name is, my business is, and the one thing, blah, blah, blah. And then I just edited it using Windows Movie Maker and made this sort of 2-minute video. And it's had like, and then I encouraged the users below to, what do you think? And because it allowed them to promote their business a bit, because they could say, my business is, and blah, 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 we've had like 50, 60 comments, you know, and that's sort of spread. You could incentivize it and go, the best comment every month wins a flip camera. And just, you know, any brand really can do that, no matter whether you're really obscure or you're very consumer, and just have the flip camera on you at all times. And if you're at an event or on the tube, and then you can put it on YouTube and it spreads. And, you know, I think video nowadays is so cheap, and don't think you need to spend thousands and thousands of pounds on glossy logos. And, you know, it's so easy to do video nowadays.
Yeah, Erica, some thoughts? Oh.
Yeah, and I was going to agree with you and say rich media definitely goes a long way in getting visibility on social networks. But the other thing that you can do too, within your, just another content idea for your email newsletters, is feature some of the posts of your fans within your email. So it'll drive them, it'll show that you are reading what they're saying, you're caring about what they're saying, you're engaged with them, and it will also inspire your fans to maybe return to a certain post or a certain discussion that you were having. So if you're featuring some of those fans within your newsletter, just connecting those dots, and you know, that'll make them show that you're interested in what they have to say. And I think just anything about asking questions and learning more about your audience. I mean, email's great for getting that message out there, but social is where you can continue the conversation. So you can have you know, say you're having a poll about, I don't know, whatever it is, cake recipes or cake flavors or whatever is relevant to your business. You know, you can start that on your Facebook page, but don't forget that that post is just going to go by in the stream, and then you can follow up and email and remind people that, hey, I have this content here.
Yeah.
Eric has just nicked my point. But that's exactly that. There is a brilliant synergy between email and social, where social stuff should be shared on email, and email questions should be asked in order to generate content for social. But I would add one other point, and we work with lots and lots of big organisations. Everybody thinks that they're just loaded. They're not. And the fear is that all this content is going to cost loads and loads of money to produce. It doesn't. What you need to do is think about how you shatter that content, and that's what we call it, was break up the content. So if you go out and you create a video on your flip cam, which doesn't exist anymore, but and you create a nice video, chop it up in different ways, do vox pops and outtakes, take some of those comments and tweet some of those comments, maybe pull together that video and create a white paper around it. There are a huge number of things you can do with one idea, and what I see a lot of is one idea, and you think, oh, you could have done about 8 things with that and made it a great deal more popular, made it work really hard for you, making your investment deliver a better return as well.
That's a great point in terms of repurposing content. So there's a friend of mine who runs a company called Infinigraph in the US. The idea of that is that it identifies your trending content, so the content that people are most engaging with on your Facebook page in particular, and then they allow you to repurpose that as adverts. effectively. So you're picking the content that people have already voted for because they like it, and then you're using it elsewhere, let's say on your website or whatever, to engage people. So that kind of content, I could see that working with email just as well. Yeah.
Infographics.
Infographics. Let's not go there. If you've seen my tweets in the last week about infographics. Another one. Right, so questions. Where are we at? Oh, lady with a mic already. You brought it yourself? Or
yeah,
did
no.
That's thinking ahead.
We publish magazines, and we've only just started using Twitter and Facebook because there's already so much stuff to deal with, but it looks like we have to, so we've started. And so far we've been using emails for selling, for example, advert space. So we'd have, using Constant Contact, we'd have a targeted approach when we're doing a baby feature or whatever feature we want to do. So we'll target specifically from our a database. I'm wondering, what is the etiquette to sell on Twitter or on Facebook? Because I came to the other conference on Tuesday, and I think one of the speakers were saying it's not really a place to sell, or I think that's what I understood. And the other question is, in terms of, is it okay if I tweet my offer or my selling point and ask my followers or my fans to retweet? Is it something that is good? Is it okay to do that?
Yeah, so the etiquette of social media and selling.
Sure.
Okay.
So I think you absolutely can sell on social, but you have to be really cautious about how you do it. And the other thing is, if you're just building up your networks now, I don't think now is the time to do it. To enable your followers, in this case, to be a source of business acquisition for you, you really need an engaged and a fairly sizable, whatever that means for your organization, network first, and make sure that they are receptive to you, and really trust is the currency, so you have to build that up first. But then I think you can ask for the sale, but you have to do it very delicately and in a way that's not going to offend your audience and not overdo it. Once you build up that trust, they're going to be much more likely to buy from you. And I forget the second part of the question.
Second part. What was the second part of your question?
Is it okay to ask my followers or my fans to retweet my offers?
Yeah, absolutely. I would just, things that if you ask them to retweet, it's more likely to be retweeted, just don't overuse it.
I think you said you're a publisher, so I'm speaking as a publisher as well. We obviously have email newsletters that have advertising in that we sell, and increasingly now brands, and it's big brands, we include social media in the mix as well. So, and you have to be very careful how you do it. But for instance, we did a competition with Renault where they gave away VIP tickets to the British Grand Prix, and they hid 6 cars on Business Zone. So it worked for Renault and us because people had to search on Business Zone for the cars. We had a Twitter hashtag called "Win a Car" or "Win tickets to the British Grand Prix." I can't remember what the hashtag was, but we included that as part of the advertising deal. So it was sort of clear to our followers that this was a sponsored competition, but it wasn't like a direct, please buy a Renault car. And it spread across Twitter, and Renault's own Twitter, Facebook page tweeted it, and their Twitter account tweeted it. So when selling to advertisers, consider including social in the mix. So rather than buy this baby product, include a competition that has a hashtag, and that's a more subtle way of helping your advertiser out. And obviously it means you can maybe charge a bit more money as well for the advert.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. You want to do it intelligently, but also I would say that if you're a publisher, you've really got to look at your balance, because you're a publisher, your stuff is all about the content that you provide. So that's what you've got to lead with. If you're looking at actually using your followers and asking them to RT stuff for you that you then want your advertisers to pick up on, which is what I understood from the question, I think that's a little bit difficult, because they might not have, they probably don't have those contacts. So I don't know whether it might just annoy them rather than actually being helpful to you. What I think would be better is whilst you're on Twitter, hunt out those brands on Twitter. Say, for example, and actually build a relationship with them and talk to them about advertising yourself individually there. A good rule of thumb for anyone who's actually thinking about tweeting offers and such like is you've got to have at least 10 items of content to 1 item of promotion, unless your Twitter purpose is, you know, hot deals on shoes, in which case people want hot deals on shoes, right?
Absolutely.
So think about it relevantly, but in terms of, you know, if you're a publisher, you've got to be sharing content first.
I've got a practical example actually of the latter in terms of, so there's a bakery up the road in Shoreditch, and they have a Twitter account, and they only exist to sell their hot buns and cakes when they're hot. So basically they tweet, come down and we've got a whole bunch of croissants, you know, and 1,500 people will run down from the offices and buy them there and then, you know. So you wouldn't follow a bakery necessarily for any other reason, I don't know. Would you? You might do. But anyway, that's why they do it and nobody minds. So depends on your goal, I guess. More questions. So, we've got one virtual question again. Sorry, I will come back to you guys.
We've had a couple questions on Twitter about location-based marketing, the popularity of apps like Foursquare, and how relevant is it right now?
Yeah, so Dan, are you keen? You've got the mic.
We haven't done much on that. We are having advertisers now who come to us and want to use our members in their locations to target their advertising. So we are shortly going to launch an app for our forum, and we are looking into iPad apps and all sorts. But when you've got a community like ours that are based all over the place, this bringing them together in their location, I think, is really key. And I do check it on Foursquare, and I'm checking it more and more. But I have to admit, I haven't yet worked out how to use it properly.
Yeah. Erica?
I think there's a huge opportunity for small businesses there, especially if they're trying to drive traffic and chatter about their location. But I think the one part where, you know, maybe Foursquare could have done a better job is to really reach out to the merchant community. They did a great job reaching out to users and galvanizing users to check in. And I think some of the most recent data has shown that check-ins have kind of waned off because users aren't really seeing a whole lot of the benefit of checking in anymore because the novelty is worn off a bit. And so I think if we can educate small businesses more about, hey, this is what happens when someone checks in, this is some of the opportunities that you can take. You can offer a deal, you can offer something, you can encourage people to review your business on Foursquare. I think that would probably up the adoption rate a little bit more or make it go up again.
Mm-hmm.
I would add, you don't need to think about Foursquare all the time.
Yeah.
There's a nice geeky phrase running around for 2012 called SOLO-MO. It's done by the Americans, bless them. Social Local Mobile.
Yeah.
That's what it stands for. Social Local Mobile. 44% of people access their social networks through smartphones. This is not anything really to do with Foursquare. Geolocation is all about how we are now segmenting ourselves. We want people to know we're in London. We want to know people not just to know where we are at the time, but we want to find services that are close to us. So a colleague of mine uses a service called Waze, W-A-Z-E, because he wants to know the latest traffic updates. And it has nothing very much to do with Foursquare, and it has very little to do with anything else, but it has everything to do with location. So
yeah.
I think you'll see a huge number of applications open up in our own, you know, our regular networks like Facebook and Twitter, but also beyond that, which are going to make the most out of the fact that we are now connecting via mobile.
And actually, just to add to that, some of the dashboard tools that you might use, you know, people use Hootsuite, Marketly Suite is one that I know well, and they let you do location-focused searches. So I know a small business financial director actually, who I showed him Marketly Suite and said you should be using this, and he did a search in the Cambridge area for somebody looking for a part-time FD, and he got a client within a couple of days of trying it. So, you know, all that kind of usage could be very useful as well.
And you don't even need to be picking up another platform. You know, as Katie was saying, it's not necessarily all about Foursquare. Of course, there's Facebook Places. So if you have a business page and you've got a location attached to that business page, then people have the ability to check in with you.
Yep. Good. More questions? Yes, the chap has been waiting for ages. Is there a mic we can bring from behind? He's got a mic. Oh, he's got a mic. Okay. You brought your own too.
I thought you were pointing somebody behind me. I've built a listing site. I've got about 4,000 businesses on there, and I've got their email addresses. And I want to email them all, and I'm worried about being flagged for spam. Is there any pointers that you can give me about that, please?
Have you already got an email provider that you're going to use for that?
No, I was going to do it on my own platform because a lot of the email providers prohibit use of info@ or admin@.
Okay. Because what I was going to say is the email providers, and it depend on who your ISP is then, if you've got your own platform, whether what their rating is as well as what your content is. But there's certainly, I mean, if you just had a little hunt on Google, you're going to be able to find some great articles about the types of content that get flagged for spam and then avoid them. So you know, when you see people who sending you an email and maybe it's got the words free in it, but it's got like FR asterisk EE, so it, you know, to break it up, that's them trying to avoid the kind of the spam capture thing. And then there's also actually, you know, asking people to add you to their whitelist and make it worth their while. It's like Katie was saying earlier, you give people a reason to do something. So you're going to be giving them beneficial information. It's not just that you're going to be selling to them, although of course you probably are going to be selling to them as a byproduct, but actually get them to whitelist you as well. Have you got anything to add on that?
Yeah, I was just, did you say how you collected those email addresses?
Just searched online and added it manually.
So usually a best practice is to, drive people on your website or either on your Facebook page, get people to sign up because they're going to be ultimately more qualified. They're going to be more interested in what, you know, you have to say about if they come to you instead of, you just finding emails on the internet. You'll most likely will get flagged for a spam. I would think people have to opt in. It's a permission-based. Permission-based is really a best practice. So if you have email capture forms, either, like I said, website, Facebook, you could possibly do it through Twitter too, through a Twitter landing page. Any other, even if you have a physical location, that's really a recommended best practice.
I would suggest as well that in terms of the results you'd get from emailing to info@ addresses, it's very minimal. I mean, you know, if ever you do it and just try some of them out, whether you get a response, I mean, it's very unlikely. You're much better to have an actual personal email address.
Sure.
So,
okay, thank you.
Okay, another question? There was a forest of hands earlier, so yes, one lady here, mic on its way.
Hi, it's just a quick question about how to approach the first newsletter. Currently, I work for a company. We're a social shopping website, so all our users have to use Facebook in order to use us, because it's also a Facebook app. Mm-hmm. So we have all their email addresses, but we don't want to just start emailing them by default, but also, so what is the best strategy to basically get the existing user base to sign up to our newsletter once we actually start it?
So where are they already?
It's a game. It's an online game.
Okay.
We run, and basically we don't have a form of communication with them other than Facebook, okay. Tumblr, Twitter, all of that. So we wanted to introduce the newsletter as a form of just to basically re-engage customers and keep them engaged once they sign up. So for the new users, it would be easy. They can just, when they actually register, tick the box. But how do we get the existing users to sign up?
How do we engage these people and get their details, get them to sign up?
So I would say, to start with, you need to tell them that you're also bringing in an email service and make it worth their while, make it something that they're going to want. It would therefore have to be not exactly the same content that they get on Facebook, because if they're already getting it on Facebook, why would they bother signing up for your email? So there needs to be some sort of added benefit to them, and then I would get them to opt in. Personally, I feel like it would be okay to email them once, like have it be clear on the page that you're setting this up as a separate thing. Email them once, tell them what's happening, and ask them to confirm that they want to receive it. I feel like that would be okay because you've already got their email addresses, but you don't want to just start blasting it to them.
Yeah, and I would say too, just explain to them and be really clear about why they should sign up for your email address along the same lines of, you're going to have different content. And I think that's a mistake that a lot of people make when it comes to, hey, follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook, and they don't say what they're going to get if they do that. Same thing with email. Say you're going to get, exclusive coupons or whatever it may be that's right for your business.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Any other comments on that? No? Okay, more questions. What do we have? Okay. Well, I'm going to go back to the panel then. So, the future. Where does the future lie? Are we going to see much closer integration between these tools? Is the social CRM sort of thing that you mentioned in terms of making it really easy to track people right the way from Twitter, Facebook into your CRM or email system? Is that where we're going? Dan, do you want to offer some thoughts?
Well, I think there does need to be some kind of, getting rid of some of these things, because there's so many platforms and there's just new ones launching like every second, it seems. So I think there does need to be a focus on the providers really and the businesses on what they should be using. But I think it's going back to the location, hyper-local thing. I think for me that's the future. I mean, just in my space, in publishing, there's so much more interest now in really, really, really local content targeting. So lots of journalists that have been made redundant are now setting up. There's a site in Bristol where I'm based called Bristol 24/7, which is created by a former journalist, and it's just focusing on Bristol, and he's actually doing really, really well. And there's one in Swindon launching soon called Total Swindon. And I think the local market is one that's going to grow, and linked to this location thing, and then how email and apps and social link to that. I think hyperlocal is one thing to think about for the future.
Okay, hyperlocal.
Yeah, the holy grail is social CRM, mouth-wateringly holy grail. That means that instead of looking at this is a customer on Twitter, this is a customer on my email, we now look at the customer. So it's a turnabout and says, here's the customer, here's Joe. Joe connects to me via Twitter, Joe connects to me via email. Joe prefers to speak to me about email on deals. Joe likes to talk to me about this through Twitter. I mean, this is the holy grail. And the market, I promise you, behind the scenes, the tech market is moving at some speed to get there. There are lots of horrible challenges. Needless to say that most of us sign up to Twitter and Facebook and use handles that are not our own names. So trying to work out that Katie Howell is also Smoothcat71 doesn't work. So the system can't work this one. God, I can't believe I've told you that.
Let's make a note of that.
But my point is that some technology challenges that sit behind this, but there will be a day where we start, maybe not the whole single customer view, but this is where social media is going, and it is moving at this horrible pace back to this thing that I said right at the beginning, which is all about your audience, it's all about segmentation. The future is here. Not because the technology is driving it, not because we as marketeers are thinking more cleverly, but because the customer is demanding it. And the customer, which is all of us too, doesn't want to receive messages that don't make us feel special. And that shift in our attitudes, our lower tolerance for not receiving the right level of customer care from a brand that then expects us to be loyal is driving this change. So whether we like it or not, it's heading that way.
Yeah, Erica.
Yeah, and just to follow up on the social CRM part, that's what I get really excited about too, but I'm a big nerd. But so I think that the point is that a contact is a contact is a contact, whether that's the email address, whether that's on Facebook, whether that's on Twitter. And what social CRM and what means is that we'll be able to get the same sort of business intelligence and business results. We'll be able to measure it in a way for social media that we can measure it for email now. So I get really excited thinking about big data. So we'll be able to look at in the future things like, all right, so of all of our customers when customers engage with us on Twitter, they buy more of this product, or they attend this webinar, or you'll get more business intelligence up to not only what works in each channel, but what the profile of each channel looks like. So we'll be able to target content much more effectively and see business results, most importantly.
Okay.
And I think your followers and your email readers are actually getting more used to interacting with brands on multiple platforms, and I think that's really going to have a huge impact as well in terms of the types of messages that they're willing to receive, not just the technology. And then what I'm seeing with social media platforms is that they're all kind of sort of borrowing each other's functionality a little bit as well. So there does seem to be this kind of, as much as they're trying to differentiate themselves, they're also homogenizing. So like on LinkedIn, there's now a like function, which obviously is from Facebook. So, yeah, and I think that's going to be quite interesting to see how that goes, and I think the two will merge more.
Absolutely. So certainly in the social CRM events, I did a series of those last year, and you'll be pleased to know that even the biggest companies in the world haven't figured this one out yet, and they're chucking loads and loads of money at it. So actually some of the smaller solutions that are available for smaller companies are actually better, I think, than many of the big ones. So we may have an advantage here as small businesses, which is nice. So just, unless there are other questions as well, anybody else had a burning question they didn't get out? Yeah. Let me grab a mic.
It's just with regards to keeping your sites fresh. There's so much pressure to have new content, new images, blogs, etc. And I just wanted to get a feel for what the actual rules are, because I don't have the resource to have an editor, etc., etc. And the temptation is to use other people's contents, perhaps include an RSS feed on my site, which is using someone else's blog. What are the actual rules? Can I do this?
Yeah, the integrity of content.
I'll take it first. I can take a first stab at it, and I think it's absolutely okay to use other people's content in addition to your own. The other thing too is don't forget about user-generated content and pulling content from your Facebook page or from your blog comments or featuring any sort of interaction that you've had with some of your customers or fans or followers. That's all content that you can use. And again, back to Katie's earlier point about, if you can have one idea, but iterate on that and use that one idea in many different ways. And, not every blog post has to be, 500 words long. No one really reads 500 words anymore. Make it 2 and make it a series. And you can take that one idea and extend it for a longer period of time.
Well, give me an example. I used an image. Sorry. I actually used an image which I just kind of Googled on Google. Oh, that's a nice image. I'll put it in. And then it came up. And I think I was probably unlucky, or I chose a very nice image. And it was someone from Getty who then rang me a month later saying, use my image. I said, well, it was on the website, so does that mean I'm not allowed to use it?
Yeah. Well, to be honest, a lot of companies...
If it's in the public domain...
Yeah, just to point out, I blog for one of the UK's marketing blogs,
Right.
And they have guidelines in there. And basically, they say to us, when you're using images, either pick ones that you have the rights for, or go to Flickr, the free photo album, and use ones that you have, that are available for rights. And as long as you stick to that, you can't go far wrong. If you choose Getty pictures, I can almost guarantee you that you're likely to get caught, because that's their business.
But does the same apply then to editorial content? So
there's a bit of a difference there. So there are article directories that you can go to where there are articles on all sorts of different subjects, and they are there for people to pick up and use. So the rules for those are that there's a little bit of attribution. I want to say attribution. No, attribution. There's a little bit of attribution text at the bottom, so you always acknowledge where it's come from. Some of those, if you go to those article directories, like e-zine articles or whatever, there are some terrible articles in there. Do not just pick any article, read them, make sure they're actually good, because those people are using them to promote their services, but there's some really good content in there. The other thing that you can do as well is you can always find something, like say you might want to look at my blog or somebody else's blog and actually comment on one of my blogs. So you might want to reblog it. So what you could do is you could say, I found this article on Tamsin's website, give the link, pick out the specific parts of it and that you want to comment on, and then put your comment in. And then that's like building a conversation. And ideally, then you'd also email me or whoever it is and say, hey, I'm really interested in what you're doing. I've commented about it, because I'm likely then to talk about that for you, and then that's going to help spread your net. But then the other thing that you can also do is you can get guest bloggers. But you do want to make it as permission-based as possible. And specifically on images, I think going to Flickr using the images that are allowed to be used is a great example. The other thing that you can do is just use a really inexpensive image library. Like I use Dreams Time, which is not terribly expensive. And if you're using it online anyway, then it's the lower res versions that you use too. So just be careful about that. If you can't somehow, if there's an image that you want to use and you somehow can't get permission, then if it's like you've asked them and then they never get back to you, I would say it's bit hit and miss whether you do it or not. Strictly speaking, they could come after you for copyright, but if you attribute it, again, I can say that now, attribute, then that's, you're kind of covering your bases, but I think that's a bit of a personal call.
Pretty comprehensive. Any comments from Dan?
One more free photo site, sxc.hu, which has a lot of free images. We use that. And S for sugar, X, C for cat, .hu. And that has a lot of free images and some that are really cheap, but we use those free ones. And also, I'm a big fan of Storify, which is a website that allows you to, if you've been to an event such as this, create a story around a subject. So you can search across social for Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, pull them in and make a story out of it, and then you can embed that on your blog. So for instance, so you can look for hashtags that are relevant to your audience and have these regular stories on your blog. And what blogs like Posterous and WordPress and Tumblr allow you to email, and it publishes automatically on your blog. So use your own photos and use the sort of really nice photo apps that make it a nice photo, and just have a photo on your blog. There's more and more, like we've said, Erica said, people won't read 500 words, unfortunately, speaking as a journalist, but they might, they like photos, and those are the sort of things that get shared. So there's lots of ways to get around the copyright issues.
Great. Well, it's a fuzzy area, though. Every retweet is plagiarism, technically. But hey. So we're going to wrap up, guys. You've got just a second, if you can, to give me your key takeaway from today. What do you think is the main point you want to leave us with? Maybe Dan, you've got the mic. Yeah.
I think the key thing is relevance. So whatever you're doing, before you do it, stop and think where your customers are, where do they want to be communicated from. Don't throw all your eggs into several baskets and go on all the platforms. Just think carefully and just be relevant to your customers and talk to them in the way and on the platform they wanted to be talked to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll probably reiterate it about 12 times already. But planning. If you really want to think about email and social and true integration, plan ahead of time. Think about what your audiences want, where they want to be communicated, and how you're going to have a conversation, how you're going to link these two really powerful ways of marketing together.
And just to follow up too, I think that one of the key takeaways is that you don't have to do everything, but do the few things that work for you and that are most valuable. It can be really overwhelming, especially if you're if you're a small business owner or you're even doing this by yourself. Just pick the few things that work, experiment, and iterate.
She stole my point. That's exactly what I was going to say. I was going to say don't panic. Do one thing at a time, integrate it piece by piece, and that will also give you the chance to test it and make sure that it's actually working for you and it's working for your followers and your readers.
Okay, well, on that note, I think we're going to wrap up. We've reached a very warm temperature now, so thanks to Sam and Chinwag, thanks to Constant Contact for sponsoring the event, and thanks to my beautiful panel. Thank you.